Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live bake-along. My name is Patricia Meredith, and I'm an author of historical mystery. And I am joined here with books with Amy Marie, a fellow booktuber who has so wonderfully and kindly and generously read my books and even listed my first one as one of the best reads of 2022. So thank you for joining me, Amy.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be delicious.
I'm so excited. Okay, so a little introduction background with what we're baking today. So I'm the author of the Spokane Clock Tower Mysteries, and they are set in the Pacific Northwest in Spokane in 1901. And one of my favorite ways to research and prepare for the writing of the book was to research 19th century cookbooks and find real cookbooks to have my cook character actually be making. And then I also have a maid, and she does real cleaning tips because that was also included in cookbooks. So did you enjoy those parts, Amy Marie? Are those?
Yes. Every time they make me hungry because I tend to read right before bed, and then I'm sitting there and they're talking about her feast, and I'm just like, I really want to be eating right now, especially the muffins. So I'm very excited.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, so I thought I would begin by reading that portion and kind of introducing you to Mrs. Curry. Mrs. Curry is my cook in Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker, and this is the first book in the series. And Amy Marie and I were just talking about how you definitely want to read these books in order. You want to read Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker, and then Cupboards All Bared. Oh yes, and Amy. And then Crazy Maids in a Row, which is the latest release. And then I'm working on book 4, and we'll see how that comes out. So yeah, so Butcher Baker Candlestick Taker, we're introduced to Mrs. Curry, and she does carry through all of the books. She's become one of my favorite characters to write. So here's just a little sampling and why we're making these muffins. So let me also introduce Thomas is going to come up in this. Thomas is one of my detectives. He's a twin with Bernard, who's the main detective. But Thomas is the one, I like to think of them as Danny Ocean and Rusty. And he's my Rusty character who's always got something in his mouth. So, all right. So Thomas began. Any sign of your husband, Mrs. Sigmund? Just cream, please, he said in response to the proffered additives, helping himself to a muffin. Yes, definitely lemon, but with a sprinkling of rosemary. He was beginning to wonder if Mrs. Curry had been his mother in another life. No, sir, the maid said softly, avoiding his eyes. I see, and you still maintain you don't know where he's snuck off to? Lemon crumbles fell from his lips. He used his fingertip to pick them up again, emphatic he wouldn't be letting one morsel go to waste. And then later he sighs as he finishes his muffin, and reached for a second one, bumping hands with Prescott as he did the same. Prescott shifted in his seat beside him and looked apologetic, but Thomas didn't see any problem with showing Mrs. Curry their gratitude for her skills. So he grabbed another one with an encouraging smile in the clockmaker's direction. And Archie Prescott is kind of the lead in this one. He's my clockmaker. It is the Spokane Clock Tower Mystery. So, we've got a clockmaker. But so who was your favorite character, Amy Marie?
Wow. It's really hard. It kind of depends on the book, but I'd say I sympathize a lot with Archie. I feel for him in social circumstances and stuff. I feel like he's always maybe a little awkward. Yeah. I like him. I like Marion. I like Mrs. Curry. I want to be around Mrs. Curry with her cooking, but all of them are really interesting characters. And I really liked learning more about clocks in the first book, especially because I didn't know anything really about the process. So to hear him describe it and get into his work was really interesting.
Excellent. Good. I'm glad all that research was worth it.
Yes, it was. It was very well thought out.
Oh, good. It's always fun to try. It's always a balance trying to figure out how much research to include and how much, how to weave it into the story to show that, the iceberg. You'll hear authors talk about the iceberg of research, right? So there's, I'm going to show you this much, but there is this much underneath it. So speaking of which, let's get baking. So let's see. I'm going to turn on my other camera so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So I've already measured out. Oh, so let me start. Hold on, one more thing. Let me show you where on my website you can find the recipe if you want to bake along with us. Here we go. All right. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see it, Amy?
I just see your bowl right now.
Just my bowl.
And you.
Okay. Well, if you head to my website, yeah, so it's not wanting to share. Got one too many things going. Oh, no, there it was. Sorry, guys. This is my first time trying to do this here. Popped up in a different window. There it is. All right. Share that.
Can see it.
There we go. Okay. So this is my website. If you go to my website and scroll down, you'll find I just posted about what we're doing right now. And right beneath that is the recipe for lemon rosemary muffins. And you can also find that on the main page if you go up along the border up here. If you go to research, there's recipes, and that's where all my recipes are. So here's what I just read for you from the book. And then here's the recipe. So this is what we're going to be cooking today. And then I also included some tricks from the 19th century because one of the things that I found interesting was this recipe includes buttermilk and sour cream. And my first thought was, did they have that in the 19th century? And
I thought about that too.
Yeah, it just seemed odd because, how would they keep sour cream good? Because, they were still coming out with fridges and things like that. But apparently they did because it's included in recipe books all the way back to 1850s as far as I have. So they had sour cream or they made it on the spot. So one of the things I included on the website was how to make a quick buttermilk, which is basically you're going to go ahead and measure out your milk right now and add a little bit of lemon, which you should have on hand anyway, since we're making lemon rosemary muffins. And you just let it sit there basically while we're doing the rest of it. And by the time you come back to it, it'll be buttermilk. So nice and easy and quick. So, all right. So let's see. You're going to need, okay. Let's see. So you need flour and sugar and baking soda and salt and lemon zest, which I've got 2 lemons here. That's about how many I'm going to do. And then dried rosemary. You can use fresh rosemary, but I've actually found that dried rosemary works better. I think it's a stronger flavor in the muffins. And then for the wet ingredients, you need butter, and I've gone ahead and pre-melted mine. And then, like I said, buttermilk, sour cream, and egg, and then vanilla or almond. So I've discovered that some people don't like the flavor of almond. I love the flavor of almond. Do you like the flavor of almond?
I like the flavor, but we have a nut allergy, so I'm going with the vanilla for today.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, there you go. So there's another reason. Go ahead and go for the vanilla. And then I've got my oven preheated. Do you have your oven preheated to 400?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. And we're going to make muffins. So, all right. Let's see. You can see over here. So the first thing is a cup and 3/4 cup. So 1 3/4 cup of flour. So I've gone ahead and measured that in here. Right there. And then I don't own a sifter actually. So I just use a whisk, and I'm just going to whisk everything together. And that seems to work pretty well. My professional baking sister would probably argue otherwise, but that's what I go with. So, all right. So I'm going to add 3/4 cups of sugar to that. And this is all the dry ingredients. So we're going to mix all the dry, and then we put in the wet in a separate bowl, and then we mix them together. Which is pretty common for muffins when you come to it. I'm just going to mix it as I go. All right, so then 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Got my baking soda. Measure that out. I've been teaching my kids how to properly measure baking soda. You got to scrape it. Let's see, can you see that? Yep, you got to scrape it so it's flat all the way across. So I get too much, go across. And I know that is important that's something that my baking sister has also taught me. So that actually is important.
My mom always told me to use the back of a knife to like go across and make it ultra smooth.
Yeah. Well, like when measuring flour, you're not supposed to pack it, right? You gotta scoop it in there. That's another one. Let's see. And
I always pack sugar though. I don't know if that's a no-no, but it seems to work okay.
Especially brown sugar, right?
Yes.
All right, and then 1/4 teaspoon salt. Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to pack white sugar. That's a good question. Anybody out there know? We've got a couple live viewers here.
Yeah, I feel like the recipe always specifically says to pack brown sugar, but never says anything about white sugar.
Right.
So I pack it.
Yeah. Hey, can't go wrong with a little extra sugar. So.
My thoughts exactly.
Yeah. All right, and then 1 tablespoon of lemon zest, which is about 2 lemons. And I did not pre-zest my lemons. Amy Marie is ahead of me here. So, all right, so this is a zester. For anybody who's never seen a zester, it is something that I only recently discovered that I had to ask about. I was like, what is that? And I use it now for everything. I use it for nutmeg. We get, whole nutmegs that are like the actual nut. And then it's fresh on your eggnog and stuff, and it's really good. So
that's a good idea. I had to borrow my mom's because all I have is like a cheese grater, and that's a little big, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, wait, what? How do you do that? So then you just take your lemon, and I did pre-wash these, and you just run them across them. And what's great about lemons is that you can get the zest off the outside, and then you can save the rest of the lemon. I'll actually sometimes, if I'm not going to use the juice on the inside, which we are today, but if you're not, you can zest them, and then I cut them into slices and put them in the freezer. And then I pop them in my tea or in my water to give a little extra flavor. So never let a lemon go to waste. You can use all of it. And then when you're done with that, you can throw it down your garbage disposal. It makes the whole house smell wonderful.
Ooh.
Lemon's also one of those things that's included in a lot of cleaning tips from the 19th century. Basically, you can clean anything in your house with lemon, alcohol, and baking soda. Not all combined, but you start looking at some tricks. It's like, why am I paying for all this stuff?
That's good. I am just going to pop my butter in the microwave so it can get all melted.
Yeah. So, Amy Marie, your favorite thing to read is mystery, right? How did you get into that?
I'm sorry, I think you cut out. What were you saying?
Let's see. Am I still there? Oh, you're frozen for a second. Let's see. Whoop. Are you still there, Amy? I can hear you, but I can't see you. Oh, there we go. You back? Can you see me? Let's see. Hello? Can you hear me, Amy? I'm going to try turning that one off. All right. Can you hear me now? No, nothing.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
See me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, there we go.
You kind of froze for a moment.
Yeah, I removed the other camera to see if that would make it a little bit simpler. So can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So how did you get into mystery? Because I know that's your specialty on your booktube.
Yes, it is. I would say like kind of cartoons when I was younger, like Scooby-Doo and Batman was always my favorite superhero because he's like the world's greatest detective.
Awesome.
But then in college, I started reading like cozy historical mysteries and then expanded into regular mysteries, and then I started getting into Agatha Christie and some more classics as well. And I just found those to be like a wonderful distraction from life, basically, because they're just so compelling and you have to be like invested and page turning with them.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I got into mysteries, is just that wonderful escapism and just like having to sit there and really dedicate all your like mental energy into the book. You can't really get distracted when you're reading, otherwise you might miss a clue or something, you know?
Exactly. So do you find, since you read a lot of mysteries, do you find that you often can solve them?
I'd say maybe like 40-50% of the time.
Yeah.
Depends. Or at least maybe have like a good hunch or something. Sometimes I have like a strong feeling about who did it, but I can't fully put my like finger on why. Maybe like, so it's like partial solving. But I find I enjoy it just as much either way. Like if I solve it, but the reveal is still really good and like maybe expanded upon more than what I was thinking, it's just as satisfying to me either way. So I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves with like mysteries or thrillers, especially, is when it's so far-fetched that there's like no way you could have solved it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I feel I feel ripped off. Like I wanted to try to solve it. Yeah.
That's my goal, is that you can't really solve it by the end, but when it does happen, it's not a wait a minute, where did that come from? But a, oh my gosh, of course it is.
It definitely is. I think I've read book 1 and 2, and they were both really good reveals for me, really intense. Had like a pretty good idea for, I think, the first one, and then book 2, I was like, I had no idea. I was like, okay, no, that didn't occur to me even slightly.
Well, and often with the first one, people can kind of figure out who it is, but the final twist surprises them. So
yeah.
It
was all the details and stuff that got me. I was like, wow, okay. I had to sit there for a few minutes after I finished it to kind of like let it settle in my brain, which is my favorite type of like mystery or book, where you have to like sit there for a few minutes after closing it, because you're just like, I need to process that a little more.
Okay.
My favorite.
Good. Yeah, with the first one, I tried to decide if I wanted an epilogue or not. I had an epilogue, and I ended up removing it because I kind of liked the sudden ending. So you get the reveal, and then it's, here's the history behind it, that kind of thing. But there is an epilogue in the next two. So that's one of those things that I kind of go back and forth on, whether I should have had an epilogue or not. So I'm glad that you like the ending.
I did.
Yes. I've got a question. What are the other books on Amy Marie's shelf? So what are the other ones behind you?
So I have Murder in a Scottish Shire by Tracy Hall, which is cozy mystery I just finished. I got it for Christmas, and it's really cozy. It takes place in Scotland, and the main character Paisley owns like a yarn and like crafting shop, and there's all this like family drama that's like really wonderful and like but heartwarming moments as well. There's a lot of like cozy scenes. I really love it. I know nothing about knitting, even like remotely, but it just seems so cozy and warm to me. I like it.
Yeah.
And the Scottish Terrier on the cover definitely didn't.
Yes.
So cute.
Oh, yes. There's too many cats in cozy mysteries. I want more dogs.
Yeah, I'm more of a dog person. Yeah, I would say. Plus, I grew up with dogs in my family because there's quite a few cat allergies as well, like sprinkled throughout. So not too many people can have them.
Yeah.
But
okay, and then I just threw in my rosemary. So I've got 1 tablespoon rosemary, and then that's the dry. So I'm just going to mix that up. So did that make you want to start knitting? Are you going to pick that up?
No. No, I do not have. I don't think I have the patience for knitting quite. But I like reading books about things that like I would actually never do myself sometimes, because I find it just fascinating to kind of step into someone else's shoes and see like why they enjoy it and why it's like soothing to them.
Exactly.
Although I do love the baking cozy mysteries, which I do enjoy myself too.
So what's your top recommendation there? What's your favorite baking cozy? Your top 3. I know you have a lot you've read.
I mean, besides like Agatha Christie is kind of an obvious like great starting point for anything. In terms of more like contemporary ones, I love Jen McKinley's Cupcake Mystery Series and her Library Lovers Mystery Series.
Yes.
Yeah. I think she has a wonderful writing style. It's like super easy to get into, and the mysteries are really interesting to me. I also really like Paige Shelton's Scottish Bookshop mystery series, again with the kind of bookish themed cozies. Those take place in Scotland, and the main character is actually an American, so it's kind of fun to like explore Scotland through her eyes, because she's not, unlike the character in this one, she's not native to the area, so it's really interesting to hear her struggle to not understand something like the Scottish words or like different things. Like she's like, I don't know what this means. So that's really interesting, and she works in this like eclectic bookshop with this like fabulously wealthy boss who can buy all these cool treasures and like the desk of like Mary Queen of Scots, or like, you know, just like these fabulous items. And she goes on mysteries that are always kind of related to bookish items or something like historical.
Okay.
So that seems like a dream job.
Oh yeah, those sound amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick those up. Have you
read
Diary of a Bookseller?
No, I haven't.
It's a nonfiction, but it's written from an actual, like, he's Scottish and he owns a bookstore in Scotland. And it's just one of those, you have to appreciate dry British/Scottish humor. But I think you read a lot of British stuff. So you would, So I think it's really funny because it's nonfiction. So it's about just the people that come into his shop. And it's like, man, you could write a book based on those characters. So.
That sounds really fabulous. I love the idea of that. Anything with like a bookstore, a writer, like that, I love that theme.
Exactly.
Say the last one is, I really love A Murder is Announced by Agatha Christie.
Yes.
Because just the idea that the murder is announced like in the newspaper, and people are like, oh, it's, you know, it's like a party or something strange. They all just like show up, and it's I just find that concept like really fascinating, that like a murder was literally announced, and it's just fascinating to me.
Exactly. Yeah. They all think it's a fake, murder party.
Right.
When I was researching for book 2, it takes place at the Montvale Hotel, right? They searched the Montvale, and that's a real hotel you can go to even today. So I went in, and I'm a fresh new author. So I go in and I was like, so I was wondering if I could get a tour of your hotel because I want to have a murder in one of the rooms. And I was like, I mean, I want to write about a murder in one of the rooms. And he was like, oh, okay. For a minute there, I thought you meant like a murder party, like a murder mystery party. I didn't think you were really going to murder somebody. I was like, oh my God.
Oh boy.
But I still like, my friends will be the first ones to tell you, like, I love the idea of having a murder mystery party, but part of me is scared to death of having one because everyone I've ever read about somebody actually dies.
Exactly. Like it's like tempting fate or something.
I know. Yeah. In fact, have you seen The Glass Onion?
I haven't.
It's the second Knives Out movie.
Okay.
I won't say any more, but it ties into that. So.
That sounds interesting. Like my husband and I have done some of those like escape room boxes, like where you can do like an escape room at home, because we like the ones in person, but you know, things were shut down for a bit. Yeah. And those are really fun, but they don't usually involve murder, so that seems like safe enough. But then I'm like, I would love to do a full-on murder mystery party, but I'm like, it's something that's gonna happen, and then it's gonna be like I caused it.
Right, exactly. Like you said, it's just tempting fate.
Yes.
I don't know. Let's see. So I've got my dry done. Are you ready for wet?
Yes, I have my dry done, and I just grabbed the melted butter.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, all right. So we've got half a cup of melted butter, and then I've already combined mine. I've got half a cup of sour cream and half a cup of buttermilk.
Okay.
And I went ahead and combined them just to make it easier. So now they're all going in the same place. All right. We're going to combine the wet, and you do want to do this in a separate bowl if you can. I have made muffins and cornbread and stuff like that where you're supposed to do it separately and then combine it, but I have done it where I just did the flour and then I just slowly added all of the wet stuff in the middle, which is kind of like making pasta. It's kind of like how you do it. So it does work, but we'll follow what the cookbooks say today. So, okay, so we've got buttermilk, butter, sour cream, and an egg. I've got my egg.
I recently did like a homemade coffee cake with sour cream, and it was like delightful. It was like a crumb cake. And that was my first time using sour cream and like a baked good. And I was like, why are we not using sour cream in everything?
Exactly.
So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, sour cream and yogurt. I found those the recipes that I find with those added into them, or buttermilk. I mean, it's all kind of the same idea. It's adding that dairy that just it lifts it, makes it so good. It makes it really.
I really like the tangy taste that sour cream adds to the food too.
Yes, exactly. All right, and then 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And if you're wondering how to make homemade vanilla, I mentioned that in one of my baking videos, which I did over Christmas. Very easy. The secret the vanilla company doesn't want you to know because it's so expensive. All right. So that's the wet. Okay. So then we're going to take the dry. So I've got my dry, got my wet. I'm going to mix them all together. And it does look a little bit chunky when you're done. It's not a smooth batter. With muffins, you really don't want to over mix it. I'm not really sure what happens when you do, but I just know that's something that I've always been told.
I think I've heard it makes them like extra dense, like not in a good way, like affects the texture or something.
That makes sense, yeah. Yeah, because you want to keep that air in there, I guess. So do you watch Great British Bake Off?
I have watched a bit. I watched some of like the Christmas one especially.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the speed competitions like Chopped, like for cooking. I always find that really fun with like the intensity and like the surprise ingredients that they're just sitting there like, how am I supposed to use this and
exactly
make it good?
They get so creative. It's amazing. I used to love Cutthroat Kitchen. I would watch that all the time. I love Alton Brown though. He's amazing. His cooking shows, his what's it called? Something Eats.
Oh, Good Eats?
Good Eats, yes.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, he gets into the science of it. It's like, ooh, that's so cool.
Yeah, my husband doesn't like to bake or cook in any capacity, but he loves Good Eats too because it's just so interesting, like the breakdown of everything.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I watched a whole one on like how to make the perfect popcorn, and it was fun. That's my go-to. I'm not a sweet person. I'm actually more of a salty. Like I'd rather have a bowl of popcorn than a slice of cake. But how about you?
It used to be sweets like very heavily, but in the last few years, cheesy, salty like things. So like nachos at night, like with Kalamata olives, like chopped up on it because it's saltiness.
Yeah.
It's really good with some salsa sprinkled on. That's like my go-to midnight snack or something.
That sounds so good. Yeah. All right, so I'm putting my papers into my muffin tin. And you can make these as mini muffins. I've done mini muffins and big ones before. I like the mini ones, but they go down too easily. So do you ever do like tea in the afternoon?
I like tea throughout the whole day, really. I drink like green or black tea sometimes in the morning and then tea in like the evening, especially like chamomile or something kind of relaxing. I find nice. How about you?
Yes. Yeah, I love doing tea. And well, I've got my here. There's my tea sets. I've got Alice in Wonderland. And then I just found this clock tower one at a thrift store. I was like, oh my gosh, it's meant to be.
That's so perfect. So, yeah, my mom just went to an antique store and she found this little pin for me because I'm starting to collect these like little pins because I had a couple for Christmas and I would wear them and I'd love it, but then Christmas would be over. And I was like, why can't I wear pins year round, you know?
Exactly.
But that's a really cute teacup and like server. I like it.
I love it.
Pretty.
And then Alice in Wonderland is one of those stories that I didn't appreciate until I was older. I never liked, I didn't like the Disney movie. It was just too weird, too bizarre. But then I took a children's course in college and we studied it with like the Norton anthology with all the, behind the scenes. And it was like, oh, I get it. Okay, he's not just crazy. He's actually making all these references to culture at the time. And we don't get it today because we don't understand the references. So, yeah.
It's cool. I think when you're doing your bookshelf tour, you're talking about getting an Alice in Wonderland edition that has like the notes or something built in about that. And I need to do that now because I liked the Disney movie, but I thought it was weird as a child. Yeah. I read it in high school and I enjoyed it, but still thought it was weird. But I want to go back and learn the references. My husband and I are actually high school sweethearts. And for like a school show, he actually performed the Jabberwock, the poem.
Oh my goodness.
And I was sitting there very excited. This was before we were going out. I was very excited in the audience. I was like, so.
You knew it was love then.
Yeah. But I want to read it now with all the references because those went over my head, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, I'm going to do a read along of Jekyll and Hyde this next month. And which, if you read my books, you'll know why. I love Jekyll and Hyde. But I found a Norton with all the commentary alongside it. So I'm going to read that version this time and see what else I can pick up, what new facts I come across.
I haven't actually read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde yet, and it's one of those books that I'm like, I need to get to it so badly. And the Scottish Bookshop Mystery Series I was talking about actually had a whole book in that series where it had like a mystery kind of themed around that. I think like a special edition of it was missing or something. It was really cool. So I'm like, I need to get on that.
Well, and it's a good short one. It's like 70 pages. I mean, it's super short.
I didn't realize it was that short.
Yeah. It's one of those like most talked about books, and you're like, oh, this is freaking short. Yeah. And it's one of those. It's not about what you think it's about. It's kind of like when you pick up, if you ever read Frankenstein or Dracula, you're like, wow, the myths that have come off of this, the stories that have come out of the original are very different from the original.
Loosely inspired.
Right, exactly. So let's see. I know you're working through Miss Marple, right? So Murders Announced. First one's Murder of the Vicarage, right? Are you reading them in order or just picking them up?
I'm reading them in order because I was trying to pick one. I got so overwhelmed trying to just pick randomly, and I was like, this is going to be hard to keep track of. So I'm doing that, and I want to start Poirot this year as well. Okay. And read it in order, I think. Yes. Although I'm tempted to read The Murder on the Orient Express because it's sitting on my shelf right now, so I'm tempted to just read that. But
you can totally read them out of order. They're not. You just can't read Curtain first because that's the last one.
Yes.
You definitely have to build up to that one. And Mysterious Affair at Styles does introduce him and Hastings, and but it's very good. It's very inspired by previous detectives. It's very Sherlockian and Anna Catherine Green, and you'll see where she was inspired by previous detectives. So it's not the most original. And then she got going, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this woman is unstoppable. It's amazing. There's a reason she's the queen of crime. So.
She truly is a queen.
Yes.
I have mine too.
Excellent. All right, I'm gonna go pop these in the oven, and then I actually have enough. I'm gonna do a pan of minis too. All right, be right back. When I'm baking, I always start with the lower number first, 15 minutes, because I don't like them dry. So start low, and you can always add them back in, but it's hard to go backwards. So, all right. So I've this lovely mini pan, so I'm gonna make some mini ones too. So I'm a homeschool mom, and so every afternoon, my kids and I we have a tea party, and that's something we started this year. And it's been so wonderful. We just have like half an hour. We have tea. We'll have cupcakes or something light. Usually they help me make those because that's, that counts as chemistry in homeschool. So.
Yeah.
and history if they have to look it up in a 19th century cookbook. So, and then we listen to an audiobook. And so we've been listening through like Cam Jansen, which is like a mystery series for kids. That's another one that I would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah. It's really good. She's got an eidetic memory, photographic memory. And so it's, it's typical cozy. It's kind of repetitive if you listen to them all in a row. But
yeah, I find I break up cozies with thrillers or something like historical to give it just like a whole different kind of feel and context, and that helps. But I still always come back to them because they're just so like interesting, and I love the mystery solving, but then you get that warm, cozy vibe that's nice at the end of the day.
Yeah, and they're just comforting. But yeah, I was wondering if you could binge read cozies because you go through, man, how many books did you read last year?
What was it? Like 135? So something about there?
Yeah. Over 100. So, man, that's impressive. I actually did 100 last year, but I included all the Cam Jansen and books that I've read with my kids.
Those all count. They all count, I think. As long as, you're reading and enjoying it, I think.
Exactly. I'm encouraging young readers, so got to start somewhere. We all started somewhere. So what was your inspiration for starting your YouTube channel?
Well, I've just always loved reading, of course, and I feel like I didn't see as many like kind of mystery dedicated channels, so I thought it would be fun to kind of have like a very specific channel. Like, I mean, I talk about some other things occasionally, but it's predominantly mysteries.
Yeah.
And I actually had a YouTube channel like a really long time ago where I did like some makeup and stuff, which was fun.
Yeah.
But it never really went anywhere, and I just kind of I wasn't like super inspired with it, but I felt far more like compelled to like go into like the books and just talking about them and reviewing it.
Yeah.
And it's been so lovely because there's just so many lovely people to talk about books with, get recommendations from, because I don't have too many people in my regular life that like read at least as much as I do. So it was nice to have like all these other people who are like, oh, I read this month, you got to read this, and that's just, it's so fabulous.
Yeah.
To have.
And you're right, there's not a lot of mystery booktube channels. Like, it took me forever to find you. And I was like looking for mystery booktubers, and I'm like, I know they have to exist, but you find fantasy and science fiction and all those other genre readers, Christian fiction. Yeah. Like, it's all, there's lots of those, but there's not a lot that's strictly mystery. So.
Not really. And it's just fun. Like, I love doing the new release videos and talking about it. I wish I could read every new release. That would be a little overwhelming, but it's just so much fun. I don't know. And I've always had some kind of interest in like video editing and doing something creatively with video. So like ever since I was like maybe 8 or 9. So always had that skill set, and I've always done something with it, like every aspect and like a part of my life. Like, I've done something involving video. Awesome. So this is just right now's type.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy doing the videos. When I was a kid, we would like every Christmas, we would reenact some story with our animals, like our stuffed animals, and we'd film it. And we did like, Christmas Carol and The Grinch and things like that. And it's one of those, like, I need to find them because they're out there somewhere on some very old, actual camera with an actual like VHS tape in it or something. And I want to find them but I started doing them with my kids. And I love editing videos. It's fun. So I finally was like, you know what? I need to actually start a YouTube channel, and not just do the blogs, because the blogs take words out of me, right? I find that if I'm writing a blog, I then don't have the energy or the brain space to write my books, which is what I really want to write. But if I do the vlogs, it's different. It actually gets me excited because then I'm talking about books. So like watching your videos and I'm like, oh man, yeah, I need to work on this other idea because somebody else is going to beat me to it. It's so much fun reading mysteries. They're so inspirational.
It definitely is. I know how you feel about it taking words out of you because I write like like I copyright and do like blog content for like
Oh,
pet companies like the pet and like marketing industry and stuff
yeah.
professionally. So during the day I'm like writing, and I've thought about doing like more written reviews, but I don't think I could do it because I'm like not with the type of work and the quantity I'm doing during the day. That would just be exhausting.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's see. I think you said you finished book 2, right?
Yes, I did.
So did it hold up against book 1?
It did, and it expanded on so many characters, and I was so excited. I was sitting there, I really loved it. I think the writing's beautiful. I feel like I'm really walking the streets of Oh, okay, I know there was a pronunciation mentioned in that book, and I'm still gonna say it wrong. I was sitting there. Spokane, okay.
Spokane. Yep. Yep.
So tempting with the E at the end to
It is. Oh no, and everybody
thing.
says that. Like if you look up, there's an episode of Frasier, right, who supposedly takes place in Seattle, and he goes to Spokane, and he calls it Spokane the entire time. And so everybody in Spokane will comment on, oh, the people who did Frasier didn't even know how to pronounce it. So I was like, so when I wrote the books, I knew that was going to be a thing. Like I've had interviews and people pronounce it Spokane because that's how it's spelled. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have a Hermione moment, right? So like how J.K. Rowling had a moment in, I think it's book 4 of Harry Potter, where every American was mispronouncing the name. It was Hermione, or I don't even remember how I pronounced it, but it was not Hermione.
Yeah.
Because I'd never heard that name before. And so she has this whole talk between 2 characters, I forget who, and they're talking about how to pronounce her name. It's Hermione. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do that in my second book. I'm going to have some character who mispronounces it, so that way we can just include that in there. And
it was a good one. I was sitting there like, aha, I have been saying it wrong.
Yes. You are not alone. So I like writing character-driven novels. Is that what you like to read?
Absolutely. I think that's why I like cozy mysteries too, especially over more like hard-boiled, like detective ones usually, because that's usually more about like more gruesome crimes, and it's more like, I don't know, it feels like it's a lot less character driven. Like you're just kind of following the detective and like their process more than like following this like more amateur sleuth maybe, or like a small town detective or someone who's like a little more like developing throughout the book, and you're learning about them and seeing like their personal connections and stuff they're using, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. That is the only thing about like Agatha Christie's novels is Poirot never changes at all. He's the same in the first book as he is in the last book. Hastings kind of changes, but and same with Miss Marple. Like she doesn't change. She's always there and she's herself. So it's not, she doesn't write character-driven novels, and yet Agatha Christie writes some of the best characters because she goes so deep with their side stories, right?
She really does. I think like The Murder at the Vicarage, that was my first Miss Marple, and I was confused because I had assumed it would be following Miss Marple around, and it wasn't. And I was like, wait, what? Who am I reading from? And then I was confused for the first few chapters.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, this is how all her books are. But it works for her. She does it so well. So I'm like, okay, I get behind that.
Yeah. A Pocket Full of Rye is my favorite Miss Marple mystery, but she doesn't appear in it until like 3/4 of the way through the book. So it's weird, but it works. All right.
I think it was like that for A Murder is Announced too. I feel like she didn't show up until much later when the police were like, okay, we really need help. Let's grab Miss Marple.
Oh, I love Murder is Announced. Let's talk about that for a minute. I'll be right back. they never show on baking shows is how often you have to wash your hands while you're baking.
It's true. I have so many like cloths and things around me right now.
Yeah.
I just tried a little bit of the glaze and it's really good.
Oh,
It's really good. I was like, okay.
I gotta mix that. Let's see. All right, so for the glaze, I think I said, 1 tablespoon and 1 cup. And it's really just kind of, you just do it by eye. To make glaze, I generally start with 1 cup. Yeah. So I measure out my powdered sugar first. I've got about a cup of powdered sugar, and then I just add lemon juice until it looks like glaze.
Yeah. I think I measured out 1 tablespoon lemon juice, and then I just I did 3/4 powdered sugar, kept adding like a little more until I just got there. Okay. I like it a little thicker, I feel like, because I feel like I've made glazes before, and then they're so liquidy, they just like fall off of whatever I was trying to glaze. Exactly. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I was just kind of guesstimating when I wrote that down for the recipe. Like, kind of add it till it works. But yeah, I think you kind of want a thicker one for these ones. If you end up accidentally making it too runny, the trick is just poking a fork into each of your muffins, so that way it sinks into it, which can also be really good. Yeah.
I'm making a chocolate cake later because we're having some family over tomorrow. Oh, yeah. And it's like called a chocolate poke cake. Oh. And like you're supposed to poke holes in it, and like you add like instant pudding and like Cool Whip, and like I guess it seeps into the cake somehow. Ooh. And I was like, okay. I was like, this sounds great. It's all chocolate. So I was like, this is gonna be good.
Perfect.
So I'm excited.
So yeah, that idea. So yeah, right now mine looks more like frosting, so I'm gonna add more.
Yeah, it's like I
might have to update that recipe. I think it was more like 2 tablespoons at least.
I know there's like a technical difference between like frosting and icing, but I'm not sure what it is. I feel like icing is like it's kind of like more like transparent. You just kind of like drizzle it and glaze kind of.
Yeah.
Food, but I don't know.
So more the consistency.
I think so. I just remember watching a baking show once, and someone had told it as, oh, this is like an iced blah, blah, blah. And then the person was like, no, this is frosting. And they were like really adamant. And I was like, I didn't know there was a difference.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, so see, that's more drippy now. That's kind of what I'm looking for, I think, today. That looks good to me today. So yeah. Yum. Which you can also add rosemary to this too if you wanted to add even more rosemary. But I don't like the crumbly bits. So.
Yeah.
Oh, and for the mini muffins, which I put in, I'm going to only set it for like 10 minutes. I'm not going to do it as long.
Very cool. Yeah, I did the full-sized ones.
Yeah, I've got one of each. I ended up with a lot. Are you going to do 2 pans?
I just put in 1 because I was afraid of, like, sometimes when you put it on the second rack above and then it gets like too dark or something. Yes, so exactly. I got the 1. Just gonna grab a little toothpick and try it.
Yes. Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah. I'll do that in a minute.
looks kind of golden, so I'm thinking it looks good, and it came out clean.
Perfect. Excellent.
Smells good.
Excellent. I should go here in a minute.
Oh, it smells really good. This is how I pictured Miss Curry's kitchen smelling.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, I try to describe a lot of the smells. I actually don't have a very good sense of smell. Oh, nope. Hold on. That's why that's a feature in the first one, because I can't smell things very well. But I thought I want to make sure that I'm describing things other than what you see. So like for Archie, he notices sounds a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clockmaker, and so he can sound theory and all of that. And so with Thomas, I try to include a lot of smells because he's so food oriented. So. All right. I think mine are browner than yours.
They look good though.
I think a minute too long, but yeah, but they still smell good. Oh, I can smell when it's right in front of me, but
I'm putting a couple on a plate to try to cool them down.
Perfect. Yeah. And then you can glaze them in the pan or separately. I think that's a good idea. I'll probably pull them out here.
Mm.
And you do want to add the glaze while they're warm. They don't have to be hot, but the glaze tends to stick better if they're warm.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to drizzle a little bit on these 3 and try it.
All right.
So were you always into mysteries, like from a young age, or?
Well, like you said, Scooby-Doo,
Yeah.
that's the intro for a lot of people. I'm trying to think what else mystery-wise. I was pretty young when I read my first Agatha Christie.
Okay.
Like probably 10 or 11.
Wow.
Because they're very clean. So, I started pretty young. I think my first one though was And Then There Were None. Yeah.
It's a good one.
It's so good. It's one of those books you can't really talk about though, without giving away the ending. But it's so good. But I had to read it It's one that I chose to read for class, and then we had to reenact it. So again, the video skills. And so me and my friends went up to one of my friend's houses, because she lived in this beautiful house on 5 acres out in Ohio. And or maybe more than that, but I just remember it was the perfect, manor house mystery, that kind of setting.
Perfect.
And then my classmates and I filmed And Then There Were None. We reenacted the whole thing as our class project for the book report. And it was so much fun. But yeah, that's definitely one of those that I would love to write something like that. But most people are familiar with the plot of that one. So, yeah.
It's good. I read it for the first time last year, and I was just floored. Absolutely loved it. And I actually watched the, I think it's BBC. Like, they have like a 3-episode special. And I actually really liked that. I feel like it captured everything, stayed pretty true.
Yeah. Is that the new one?
That was really scary.
What's his name? The actor in Poldark.
Oh boy.
Adrian something like that. Yeah, but it's that one, right?
Mm-hmm, I think so.
Does that one end like the book? I don't remember. Or does it have a different ending?
It did. I think I feel like there was only like one or two differences I noticed,
Okay.
and I couldn't figure them out either. Like I couldn't figure out why the differences were made. I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but cool.
Yeah.
But it didn't like affect the overall like plot, in my opinion. So I was like, okay,
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, and I always try to remind myself it's a different medium. It's gonna be different. So
True.
like Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, but
Okay.
some of the choices that Peter Jackson made are perfect and make the movies almost better than the book, which I know is blasphemy. Sorry. So
It's hard, yeah.
but
I gotta go back and I need to read Harry Potter again because I read those when they came out, and then I was, watching the movies as they came out too. And I do feel like some of their choices messed up some of my favorite characters, and that, like
absolutely.
Ginny especially, and I was
Yeah.
just really sad about that because she was very feisty in the books, and I
Exactly.
feel like she was very like kind of muted in the movies a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and same with Hermione. Like they
Yeah.
tone her down actually quite a bit in the movies. There, I saw a thing on Instagram that was one around that was like Hermione in the books versus Hermione in the movies. And in the movies, she's just, I don't know, she's a certain character. But in the books, she's like very go get 'em and just more just in your face, and like she traps Rita Skeeter in a jar and like
Right.
things like that, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Like, she stands up for the house elves and
Yes,
everything, and I
yes,
love that, and I feel like I'm sad I heard that they gave a lot of, Ron's original lines in the book to Hermione in the movie, and they kind of, like, washed his character out because
yeah,
out of the 3, I think he seems like the least interesting of the 3, like, the golden trio, but in the books, like, he was a really brave, like, awesome character, and I was like,
absolutely.
"What is it with Ron and Ginny? What did you do?"
Right.
So, it made me
Just
a little
poor
sad.
Lucy.
I still love the movies, they're beautiful.
There.
Especially what is it? The Prisoner of Azkaban?
Mhm.
I don't know the director's name, but he just did that one, and it was, like, the just, like, the cinematography and everything was so
Right,
beautiful. The
right,
atmosphere he set, I was like, "Wow, this is
exactly, yeah.
amazing." But
That was one of my favorite books of the
yeah.
7, would be the 3rd one. Um, but I distinctly remember reading the 4th one when it came out in the car and crying at the end.
Oh,
Like
it
and being just like, "Oh my gosh." And I remember because my mom would read them ahead of time to make sure they were okay for me. And I remember her warning me and being like, "So, I think you're ready for this one, but just so you know, like this isn't middle grade anymore. It's growing with the people who are reading them. It
right.
definitely." So like now with my kids, I'm like, "Okay, when are we going to start reading them? Because you're going to want to read all of them at once." And there's some things that happen in the later ones that I don't know that you're ready for as a 7-year-old. But you can read the first one
Yeah.
as a 7-year-old, but you know, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I think my age lined up pretty well with how they were coming out because I don't remember feeling, like, terrified, but some of the movies, like, seeing it, like, actually, like, in like, visually was like, "Okay, this is a little a little intense."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love The Order of the Phoenix. I think that was probably my favorite book and movie,
Yeah.
and I remember watching The Half-Blood Prince with my parents, and we came out of the theater, and they didn't understand most of it because if you hadn't read the books, that one was, like, a really confusing movie, I think, to
Right.
follow. Like, I would have been
Exactly.
lost.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely, choices. Decisions. It's never perfect. But that's why, but if anything, they encourage you to go back and read the books, right? I think that's
I
the
think
goal,
so.
right? Is to, you watch Hunger Games and then you go read the book and you're like, oh, the book is so
Exactly.
good. So terrific. Okay. Yeah, my mini ones turned out much lighter. I like that.
Ooh.
That's good. I'm gonna drop it. There we go. Okay. So speaking of movie versions, if you finish Agatha Christie and you're like, okay, I need to get more, I need more, I need to watch it. The David Suchet BBC version
Okay.
of Poirot, he is Poirot. Like,
Okay.
he is so spot on. Yeah, he's amazing. And then the Miss Marple, they changed Miss Marple a couple times. So some of them are good and some of them are, I don't know. I didn't really care for the filmed versions of those, but the Poirot ones were really good. They did a good job of those. And they stayed pretty true to the books in all of them. Sometimes they would like combine characters because you know how there's like 20 characters in each book.
There is a lot.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of. And so in the movie, they're like, okay, well, we're going to combine, you know, these two people's stories, but it's usually all there. So they're really good.
Sometimes when I'm reading and there's a lot of books, I create like a little cheat sheet. It's like,
Yes.
you know, this person, this, that way I can, otherwise I'm like flipping back trying to figure out, who are they again? Wait.
You should post those because I bet you're not the only one.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not the best with names. So then I'm just losing.
Right.
Like, who is it? I mean, and then I remember and I'm like, oh yeah, I can tell you all these weird details about them, but just not their name.
Exactly. Yeah, I was reading Count of Monte Cristo, and I was listening to it, and it was very good as an audiobook, but you have to just kind of flow with the narrative and not try to keep things straight because there's so many characters. And so I ended up looking up, somebody had written up here's all the characters in Count of Monte Cristo and how they're related to each other or not related to each other. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I needed this because it was very confusing.
Yeah, I found one of those and then there were none when I was reading it because I was like, okay. And I saw some editions, some editions of Agatha Christie, they actually have like a character list, like reference sheet at the front of like the book.
Oh, yeah.
Where like you can reference it, or if it's like a family one, they'll have like a breakdown with like a family tree. And I was like, but none of the ones I seem to get end up having those. So I'm like, I'm gonna create my own.
Yeah. So some publisher got smart with that. Which now the first two Poirots are in the public domain. So I bet we'll see a lot more fan versions. Like, I mean, you could publish one with a character list and a whole thing. I think it's the first two. Mysterious Ferret Styles and Murder on the Links are public domain now. Plus her first Tommy and Tuppence. Have you read A Tommy and Tuppence yet?
No, I haven't.
Those are really good. They're her couple who solves mysteries. And it's actually her second novel that she wrote was Tommy and Tuppence. Again, so I'm going to turn this off.
Okay, I got mine glazed. They're all
right. Yeah.
Smell good.
All right, here we go. Is it cool enough to try?
I think so. It's well worth risking any tongue burning.
Ooh. Oh, smells good. Mine's sticking a little bit to the wrapper. There we go. All right, what do you think?
It's really good. This embodies what I pictured when I was reading.
Oh, good.
It's really good. Just see her having like a basket of these like wrapped all pretty.
Share the love.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, those are so good. The last time I made them, so I did a test run to make sure the recipe worked again. Because we just moved to Colorado. We were in Washington, which is lower altitude. So I wanted to make sure they still cooked correctly at altitude. And I didn't change the recipe at all. And usually you do for altitude, but they turned out great. So maybe that's why I could have cooked them a little less. Anyway, I test ran it, and then I ended up having them for breakfast for like days. They're so good.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I live in a high altitude as well. And when I went away to college, it was like low altitude, and that's where I started to kind of cook and bake more. And then I came back, and like half of my recipes were absolutely not like rising, or it was fun. I've reworked them since, but
Wonderful. So when you think of all the baking mysteries you've read, is there one that you'd love to try a recipe from? Shout out to the author.
I think, Ellie Alexander's Bake Shop Mystery Series, like everything in that sounds delicious.
Those are
like for a specific recipe, in the Cupcake Bakery Mysteries by Jen McKinley, there's these cupcakes called like the Tinkerbells. And I think they're like a lemon cupcake or something with like vanilla frosting, and the name always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I love lemon, so it seemed like, okay, if I was to go to the Fairy Tale Cupcakes shop, this is probably what I would like start with. Although I just read one, it was like I think it was just called Caramel Crush, and they had like these caramel cupcakes, and I was like, oh, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of those bakeries probably. What about you?
I don't know. I was asking you, not me. Yeah, the Ellie Alexander ones are really good because those are in Washington. There's a Leavenworth one series that she does too that's in Leavenworth, Washington, which is a Bavarian village, and it's all beer and stuff like that. And which, if you ever get a chance to go to Leavenworth, it's a beautiful little town. It's so much fun to visit. And it's fun to visit at Christmas, but it's also a headache. So you can hit it just outside of the holiday season. It's wonderful. So, oh man, a recipe. There was a series that I was reading. Man, it was ages ago though, and it had recipes in the back. And I thought, oh, someday when I write books, I'm going to share recipes because I loved that idea. Oh, it might have been the man. Sorry. I'll have to look through my list. I'll get back to you.
Okay, that sounds good. I know I recently finished this Odessa Jones mystery, and it's like a psychic sleuth. And it was really great. It was like a fantastic mystery. And she kept talking about this like chocolate cake the whole book. Yes. And then there were recipes in the back, and the chocolate cake wasn't one of them. And I was like, no.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, no. And then I just finished the second one, and it wasn't in there either. And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, these other ones sound good, but I was like, I need the chocolate cake recipe.
Which that does remind me. So in Murder is Announced, there's the Death by Chocolate, the cake.
Yes.
And I want to know what that recipe is.
It sounds like a good way to go out.
Yes. Yes. Because they talk about it through the whole book, and I'm like, chocolate. There's also something just about that word. It's one of those words that just, it tastes good.
Like, it really rolls like through the mind in like this beautiful way. I love it.
Right. All right, someone says orange marmalade cake in the Mitford series. Okay. Which I think I've read the first one of those, and then I have read further than that. But yeah, there's some great books out there with good recipes, and it's always fun to incorporate that. So yeah. Well, I guess we can wrap up. Thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much. It was fun.
And I hope they taste good, and that your husband likes them. And you're at your mom's house, right? So let her try them.
Yes. So I'll be sharing some with my parents, and definitely bringing some home for my husband too. So he'll be excited.
Excellent, wonderful. And I look forward to hearing what you think of book 3. So
I'm very excited.
Dive into that one, and I will get to work on book 4.
Yes.
So
please do.
So my plan is to do like 4, 5, and 6 in a row, like I did these 3. So. That's the other thing that's kind of holding me back, because I'm like doing the research for 3 books at once, and then I can just plow forward and get it. But it'll be it's like baseball and gambling is book 4, theater is book 5, and then book 6 is going to be the Interstate Fair, but also looking at the World's Fair that was happening in the Pan American Exposition that was happening in Buffalo, New York. So. Tale of Two Fairs will end up. We'll see what happens there. So
the theater sounds especially good. I'm excited.
I love theater mysteries. I'm a theater geek at heart. So, yes. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and everybody check out Amy Marie's channel. It's what is the tag again?
It's just Amy Marie or Books with Amy Marie.
Books with Amy Marie. Yes. Definitely check her out. She reads amazing mysteries, and she goes through so many, and just gives great reviews, and including one she doesn't like too, which is always good to know too. So.
I think so.
So give her a follow, and thanks for joining us today. And we'll see you all next month. Oh, let me pitch that real quick. Next month, I'll be going live doing a discussion of Jekyll and Hyde. With 3 other booktubers as well. So Amy Marie, you should read Jekyll and Hyde, and then you can join in on the discussion. Yeah, it's wonderful. So, all right, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Bye.
Bye.